Hey, it's Don, the Auction Professor here. We have a bolo today. We're going to talk just about spoons. It's something that I see everywhere. Pretty much everywhere you can find spoons at. There are some that go for some insane amounts of money, and we're going to show you some of those right now. So this is spoons. I've just picked a random assortment. I'm going to show you one of the better ones today. This is not the most expensive spoon. This is actually a Watson Sterling Silver souvenir spoon of a Native American Indian. This is a great example of what I would look for. Even if this wasn't sterling, this would still sell fairly well. Again, this one went for $5,688. So that's one single spoon. This is something that you could turn up. It's not a crazy item. We find spoons of value constantly. Weekly, you can run into some good spoons. Anywhere you go, you could find these garage sales, flea markets, thrift stores, estate sales, auctions. Wherever you go, I run into spoons. There are spoon collectors out there galore, so you will find these in collections. There's gold spoons. I've seen a few platinum ones. There's early ones as well that won't be marked sterling. Some may say coin. There's just a lot of different spoons that you could look for, whether it's from a restaurant, a hotel chain, a steamship line, an airliner, trains, anything like that. Even a hotel spoon will sell. This goes for most silverware, but spoons in general have the biggest overall collector field. So that's why I would center in on this. You'll do far better selling a spoon than you would a fork or a knife. So just FYI. Let's look at a few more here. Now these are Carl Fabergé. I know people say, you're not going to find something like this. Many people would miss the marks on these. Yes, they are very attractive, very unique spoons. Awesome work on it. The enameling is just incredible on these. Most of the time, in fact, there it is there are marks on it, but you may not recognize the mark. So if it's in a collection or at a sale or bagged up or something, they may not realize it's that old. Or these sometimes are black as can be from tarnish from, almost 100 years, and they're literally just caked on and no one would be able to tell either. Some of the markings from like a Russian piece too wouldn't have any markings that you'd recognize even for quality as well. So anyway, most people would probably run into this, might not think it's real in the first place. This set of them, and you can see them very clearly here, went for $7,000. Now, Carl Fabergé actually made the eggs, of course, we all know. There's a James Bond movie, Octopussy, which actually talks about a theft of an egg in here. They didn't just make eggs. The eggs were commission work for the actual Tsar of Russia, Tsar Nicholas. So there's something that was made before that. They actually made other accoutrements like this, silverware and dishes and all kinds of different items. It was just literally a jeweler and a manufacturing business. It wasn't originally tied to the government from what I've seen. So anyway, it's a very interesting piece there. Now here is a 14-karat gold baby spoon. Now some of these baby spoons have some horrific designs on them. Unfortunately, that's the only picture here. I wish I could blow up because there's actually sharp pieces on these. And I've seen one of these in person in a museum case. This is a museum quality piece without a doubt. You just don't run into these. $3,200, and there's a lot of gold in these as well too. Don't think that there aren't going to be any gold spoons. They're not nearly as big, but they do show up. Now this is Tiffany. It's obviously 20th century. They're usually well marked. This is a bonbon spoon because of the size of the actual bowl of the spoon. $1,450 on this one. Here's another Tiffany. This is just Japanese Audubon. This one's a stuffing spoon. It's made to serve and not actually eat off of. So the bowl itself is much larger. Size doesn't mean a whole lot in spoons, but this one's more because of the Japanese Audubon Society's moniker on the back of it. So rather interesting. It's really a nice piece in all honesty. Rather good. Now that's a pattern, of course. So anyway, let's move on. 1800 on that one. Now here's another one. This is circa James I here, 1624. That's about when this was made. This has some provenance too from Sotheby, which is an auction house. So they would know, if anybody else, if this was legit. If he has all the paperwork, he's going to know for sure that's what this is. Now this has been around a lot. It has been cleaned. You can see the tarnish in the actual grooves and such forth in this. Now I would never, ever, ever recommend cleaning any of this. And you can see the line, the London mark there. I've shown you the sites to look these up. This one might be a little harder for most because it's marked actually kind of worn. But again, it's been around for a long time. This one's $1,695. Next one here is a Queen's pattern. It's a diamond heel. These are basting spoons meant to actually dip and baste items with. This is William Chawner. It's from 1824 era. They're all dated on the back. Now, this pattern was used by many militaries. The U.S. government has a similar one that they used for the Navy, actually from like 1860s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even on up into the 40s. But instead of the seal on this one, it would have an anchor or USN on some of them. Anytime you see initials on some of these earlier spoons like US or USN or USA, a lot of those are military. United States Navy, United States Army, United States Marines, USM. So you got to look out on some of the handles on these. They will be marked like that, and it will definitely add to the value of these. This one went for just over $1,000 for the pair. Now, on something like this, I wouldn't have sold them together. I would have split them up. You might have got $600 or $700 a piece and got another $200 or $300 in return on your investment. Now, here's another Watson. Now, this one's Rip Van Winkle. This exact same character appears on Victorian trade cards as well as postcards in the 1920s and 30s. It's a well-collected character. Rip Van Winkle has been collected for a long time, and there's many different items of him around. Very interesting. It's got a nice anthropomorphic cats firing. Really interesting one here. $960. Watson helped sell this. Even if it wasn't a Watson, or even if it wasn't sterling and just silver plated, you're still talking about a few $100 for this exact same spoon. You can run into the same spoon in different materials as well. Now, here is one from Galveston, Texas. Well, actually two. And again, rule of thumb is I would split these up. Most people are buying these for a collection to keep like one spoon of each manufacturer. So I would never put two of these together like this. They would have sold separately for probably $500 or more, in my opinion, based on prior sales. This is Adolph Bahn. Well-known maker, but Galveston, Texas is where it's from, which is the key factor. There's not a lot of Western-produced silver of any kind from that area. Texas stuff just doesn't show up that much. Literally anything Western like this just doesn't show up. This would have been cowboy era. It's coin silver. Most of them will be marked coin silver. Literally, it just means that it's 90%. In many cases, people would melt down coins to make silverware. Some of the first actual coinage for our country, the rumor had been for years that George Washington took his actually silver from Martha and they melted it down to produce the first actual coins issued by the U.S. government. True or not, I don't know, but that story has been around for a very long time. This one's $821. Now, here is a Georg Jensen. Now, I've talked about Georg Jensen. I have several pieces in-house right this very second. They always sell. $949. Anything Georg Jensen I look for. This is Dutch, basically, Netherlands area, well collected. One single piece on this I would have probably sold separately. In my personal opinion, you would have probably done better as well, too. At least, say, $300 or $400 a piece would be my guess on these, especially that fork, but the spoons are the bomb either way. Mid-mod century, it's got everything going for it. Eames era as well on these. $949. Now, the next one here says Zeppelin Hindenburg. Now, this is a Brookman 100 spoon. Now, 100 is the actual material. Sometimes you'll see like 90 or 100 stamped somewhere into like the bowl area on it. Now, I don't think you can see it on this one. Now, you may not be able to see that 100 or the Brookman on here because of their photograph. Now, the key factor is the DZR mark with the actual Zeppelin on it. Now, there's no way to know this came from the Hindenburg. Now, they actually say in the condition, good used condition, could have been a recovered piece. This is not a recovered piece. Every Zeppelin from this company would have had the same silverware. They didn't go around and produce a different set of silverware for each dirigible that they manufactured and flew. So, again, this is just from the line. It doesn't mean it was on the Hindenburg. It doesn't mean it had anything to do with the Hindenburg whatsoever. They put that in the title to help it sell. Yes, it could have been on the Hindenburg because it's the exact same kind, pattern, size, and everything else that would have been on the Hindenburg. But again, there's no proof of that whatsoever. Now, I probably would have put Hindenburg in the title as well, too, but there's no actual way to know what ship this actually came from, just because the line itself used these spoons for every single ship. So anyway, $695 on this one. Now here's an early one. This is from 1803, Robert Hanul II. This is from London. It has all the marks. Now this is made to drain out, as you can see, so who knows what it's for. Olives, who knows what it was for. It's an early one. It's a sterling silver. Very nice example, $695. Anything, say, pre-1840 in sterling or silver, even silver plate, usually goes for decent money. Now here's a Charles II from 1670. It's a really interesting spoon, in my opinion. Now, I'm bringing this in here because most people looking at this would never in their wildest mind guess that this is that old. But without a doubt it is. It is well marked. It's been well displayed here. It's got every feature you could imagine on it. It's a heavyweight piece. It's a nice piece. It went for $530. Then the next one here is a Hawaiian Souvenir. A lot of people bought souvenirs when they were out of town. When this was new, it was probably only a few dollars. Nowadays, it goes for $550. Really interesting piece. It has some enamel, some coloring on there to actually add flame to it. Now, this is nice in the fact that this person did not buff it up or remove all the tarnish. Now, I love them when they're like that. I don't personally like to remove that. I like to leave them there. The photo could be a little lighter, but still, it's a nice example of this spoon. This isn't super, super rare because they made a bunch of these for the tourist industry, but they just don't show up anymore. Some of them could have been melted at many times during, the 100 years or so this was made. So now these are what you're going to run into the most now. As I said, railroad, transportation of any kind, hotels and things like that always go. This is Rutland. We've had items from Rutland, never had a spoon. This is from the dining car. Now, besides having a normal dining car on most trains, some actual big companies, big, rich, well-to-do people would have their own train car that they actually owned. It was like a luxury business travel back in the day, and there could be silverware and spoons from that specific one. This is a real nice one, $208. Mostly on these as well, too, they're just going to be plated. You're not looking for sterling in these types. Most any of the transportation lines, whatever, whether it's steamship, airship, train, whatever the case it is, they're not going to be sterling for the most part. Bartender ones, even if it's from a line that there's a ton of material, if it's a bartender piece, they will go for more. Iced teaspoons go for more as well too because they're tied to soda shops. So that's why if I see iced teaspoons that look old and dingy, I will buy them. Even if it's plated, as I said, these are all plated. Don't worry about sterling when you see these. So even if you see junky plated in big bags, you might see a bag at Savers or at Goodwill for 10 or 15 bucks. You may not think anything of it. If there's one decent one in there that you can see through the bag, I might buy it just for that one spoon and trash all of the rest of them. Good item here, $171. Here's another good one, Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad locomotive. It's advertising the Canyon Diablo Bridge. If you've been out that way, you'll recognize that the actual imagery of it itself, it's a mainstay when you were heading out west via train back in the day. $141. This is sterling. Now, things tied to certain areas in the west, as I said, are worth more money. One area that I don't go too much into would be like the Grand Canyon, only because there's more souvenirs for the Grand Canyon itself than any of the other western ones, so the price is lower on Grand Canyon items. So that's one area you got to be cautious in and not invest too much money in. Now, the next one here is Lusitania. It's a Cunard Lines, which actually merged with White Star later on. This ship was sunk by a German torpedo just before World War I. I've had Lusitania items, including a menu card. Anything Lusitania goes for some good money, no matter what it is. This one went for $211. It is sterling. I'm really surprised it didn't go for a little more, but this is a mass-produced tourist item, as opposed to one that would have been on the ship that you weren't going to be able to carry off as easily. So anyway, $211. Now, if this was actually a dining room service spoon from the Lusitania, we'd run into the same issue as we do with the Hindenburg, because the Cunard line had their own silverware for all the ships, and it was pretty much the same from the pieces I've either had or personally have seen. So $211, still a nice item though. And one other area on here is I talked about bartender spoons and iced teaspoons. This is another, I guess you could say, a bartender spoon as well. Any of these type I do look for, and I do find occasionally. They always sell, say, for 30 to 50 bucks if it's a soda one. Some of the soda ones, if it's early enough from the 20s or 30s, which is how far back many of these go, can go for hundreds of dollars. One thing to look for in how old these are is how the wording is written. Like if it's a Pepsi Cola and it has the words Pepsi Cola, if it has one dash, it's newer. If it has two dashes between the word Pepsi and the word Cola, it's worth more money. That's one of those key factors. But this one went for $53. Well, hopefully that gave you some ideas. That's what I have for you today. Well, there you go. There's another item that I do look for. Hopefully that gave you some ideas and some thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.